Hey everybody, Reverend Benjamin Blankenship here again for another episode of Discipleship with Blankenship. It's great to have you all aboard here today. I may take a little bit longer. I don't know. I'm just giving you warning just in case, but we'll see what happens with our video here today. Um, well, I've covered a lot of different topics, and there's a lot to it. And again, as I discussed in probably like the need to watch first video of it, where I canvassed over a lot of things, there is totally a difference between teaching somebody and training someone. Okay, so you can't really train someone that hasn't been taught. In fact, you really, before you get trained or trained, you need to be self-taught. You need to have some self-discipline, whether that's even going to like college or school or whatever, or getting in the Word of God and studying things out yourself. I mean, some real effort there on your part, because if you're not making the effort on your part, if you're not thrusting yourself out into that by some means, whatever, me or whoever, whatever minister, if I was pastoring a church at the time, or whoever, their thing is that you would be working with, just say that that's who you would be working with. It's got to kind of jive with that whole sort of thing. So you do need to put yourself out there. You need to study to show yourself approved. You need to be instant in season, out of season. You need to have it together, people. A good answer for everything, with your words seasoned as with salt. So you not only have knowledge, but you have wisdom. You know what to say and how to act, because quite frankly, if you don't, it doesn't matter if you have an advanced degree or not. You're shooting yourself in the foot because you stick it in your mouth uh, repeatedly, the way that you treat people and your answering and what have you. Um, okay, so here we go. Today, what I'd like to talk with you all about is this: that without a vision, that the people will perish. The rest of that verse, of course, going on to say that he that keeps the law, happy is he. The first half of that again is that without a vision, where there is no vision, the people will perish. It's talking about the vision of God. But when we talk about vision, there's a lot of complexity to that, right? Because a lot of people have different vision, even within the grand scheme, the vision of God. So I'm not talking about having some different interpretation or whatever. I'm talking about style. I'm talking about method. I'm talking about mode, all that sort of thing. So we got to line up. I feel like that within church, that we need to, a church that wants discipleship should have internships. I believe that as leaders, that we need to lead, that we need to take people under our wings instead of just exercising a title and not actually the authority and everything that that position would call us to do. That we need to get people to line up with the way that things are. It would be a really cruddy thing, and I've heard numerous preachers talk about this, to work at a church for like 50 years or whatever and just pour yourself out into this. I've pastored nowhere near that long anywhere. I was like 7.5 years at a church, but I poured myself heavy, crazy heavy out into that church. Um, Imagine that, and that in a perfect world where you're thriving, where things are going well, where you're bringing somebody in under you, and then they just upend everything that you did. Um, Preacher Ben, have you seen that a lot? Yeah, it's a nightmare. There was this church that I'd went to. I'm not going to name names of churches, by the way. There was this church that I had went to as a boy in Michigan. Y'all know that before I was 12 years old, I was born, unfortunately, in Toledo, Ohio. Yeah. So there was a church that I had went to in Michigan, which if you know me, it could be one to several, but if you really, really know me, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And there was this phenomenal pastor. This guy had been there for all these years, decades, and he had built this church up into this big, thriving, booming thing. They did not owe one red cent on everything. Everything was all paid for. They did what a lot of churches did. They got a youth leader. They brought them in. Why do you do that, preacher? You do that so people kind of get used to them. They kind of get the feel for them. And then that person that's the youth pastor or the assistant pastor, what have you, a lot of times they transition into being the pastor of that church. So if you don't like them, you know that there's trouble. But anyway, as soon as the guy had the reins, everything, and a dynamic speaker, by the way, but everything changed. I mean, wildly, dramatically changed. I wonder how much internship was done down there, though, you know, in a lot of cases. I don't know. See, the way that I am, and I've written books on leadership and such before, and I'm all psychoanalytical kind of stuff going on with me. I've worked so many jobs with people that are fantastic in one area of that job, right? I worked at a pizza place, Little Caesars Pizza, back when I was, I don't even know how old. In a perfect world where people had incredible vision and sense, I feel like they would have wanted me to manage that place. And that's what I applied for, to get in to manage that place. And there was this dude that never happened, by the way. So I ain't there anymore. I've had so many years in graphic art experience. I'm phenomenal. But anyway, so I got on down there at this place, right? I'm not even going to talk about me. I talk enough about that in my book, Mentality to Lead by Benjamin Blankenship. Go ahead, buy it. I could really use the money, especially since we got like some medical bills where my wife was in the hospital a while back and all that. Mentality to Lead. So there was this guy that went in there, and I believe that I mentioned this, and he was great. He was great at being, you know, this pizza cook and all that sort of thing. And there's a rule that there's made about that. I know it, but it doesn't pop into my head, where people will be promoted to the level of their own incompetence. You can look it up, comment or whatever. But where there's some rule that bad business decisions frequently are promoting people to a level of their own incompetence. So they found something where he was good at, where he thrived at, where he shined like a crazy diamond at. And they thought, you know, because he's good at this thing, let's put him in another kind of department, another role, doing something that has absolutely nothing to do with what he's doing. Am I this dynamic preacher speaker? Yes. But would I be the best missionary? Would I be the best youth leader? Would I be the best person in this end of stuff and in this end of stuff and in this end of stuff and is this end of stuff? Just because you think that I'm so fantastic over here, would I be that fantastic over here when the one has little to nothing to do with each other? That would be monumentally stupid to think that. So I'm an art guy with the graphic art stuff. That does not mean that I can take apart a computer and put it back together. One thing we're talking about drawing, the other we're talking about, I don't know, engineering or whatever. One thing we're talking about art, another thing maybe we're talking about math. It's not the same thing. I see in pictures, I think in pictures. So I'm good over here, but I'm not good over here. Such was the case with this guy. It was an absolute nightmare. You need to evaluate people for the position, for the role in leadership that they're being hired in or trained for. If you don't like kids, then you shouldn't be over kids. If you can't be trusted with children, then you shouldn't be over children. There are people that are suited for youth ministry. That's never been my forte, by the way. There are people that are suited for youth ministry and people that aren't, and nobody take that hard. When I was like young, I didn't even want to hang around with young people. And you know, and I love everybody. And if somebody has something in common with me, I'm kind of a recluse. It's like, man, I like music and I like art, and I don't know, back in the day I used to watch like a lot of combat sports. You've got that in another video or whatever. If there's some kind of like mutual or shared interest, then there's something that we can kind of jive, and I don't care how young or how old anybody is. If it's like, I really like the what is it, the original Hensons, or I really like the Cathedral Quartet, or whatever. We get the same taste in like a band or what have you, or Benjam of course. But whatever that thing is, you kind of got something there. You need to have internships so you can have people on the same page, lined up with the same vision, in so much so that they're not rowing against each other, so they're not fighting or pulling against each other, but that everything is mechanically working towards the same end. With that being said, I feel like that in ministry, that unity is monumentally important. And I stress this point because there's a lot of people out there, and these preachers, I think it's a ton of preachers, that they think that uniformity is good. I couldn't disagree more. In some sense, I do think that a church needs to have some kind of branding. It does need to have some kind of style, some sort of something going on, whatever that may be. And I'm not knocking one thing or another. If it is a bluegrass church, if it is a Southern gospel church, if it is a contemporary praise and worship church, whatever, I think that some things work in one place that don't work in another place. Okay, you've got that. So I do think that things need to be uniform in some sense, but I think that you can have unity without having absolute socialistic, communistic, Nazi uniformity going on. Well, how do you do that, preacher man? Well, you do that because you read the Bible and you believe it, that we're not all an eye, that we're not all an ear, that we're not all a mouth, that we're not all you're not all Benjamin Blankenship. Okay, let's just say me. All right, you're not me. Everybody's not the drummer in the band. Okay, the guitarist does not have to be just like me. Can I tell you about my band, how it worked? Because I know a thing or two about aesthetics, you would hope, right? What I said is, I'm like, man, I really hate these groups that get out there and that it looks like they're not even trying. I mean, just tacky as all can get out. And we're a Southern gospel group. We were like the stray cats of Southern gospel, as Pentecostal as you can get of Southern gospel. I've already mentioned how the Hensons were a tremendous influence, the Paynes, the Crabb family, the Happy Goodmans, all kinds of stuff like that. So what you're basically hearing is the groups that are better than any other group that there has ever been. So why my music's so good? Absolutely, whatever. Anyway, I would say to everybody, I can't stand it when people look like they're not even trying. It's just like a hodgepodge when they get up there on stage. And it's like, you don't have to wear exactly the same thing. You certainly need to look appropriate. You don't have to wear exactly the same thing, but we are going to coordinate our colors. And so we would predominantly wear black and white. Why? Because everybody has something that's black and white. You watching this right now, if you're remotely normal, you probably have attire that you could wear that consists of black and white. Something, right? Guys, if you got a tie, you probably got a tie that's black. You might even have a tie that's white. Sometimes I would even throw in like grayscale stuff there. You got a jacket, you got a shirt, you've got a t-shirt, you've got a button-up shirt, you've got a polo shirt, you've got a pair of jeans, you've got a pair of dress pants, you've got shoes that are black or white. You probably have an outfit that is entirely black. Probably, right? And if you don't, could one just walk into a store relatively easily and find said thing? Absolutely. So that's what we did. So we looked like we matched, and we did it about as easily as humanly possible. Sometimes I would wear a white belt, and a white tie, and the rest would be black, and maybe my black and white wingtip shoes, because that's the way I live my life. Sometimes I would wear all black, and I would have on my white beetle boots or English boots or whatever you want to call it. That looks incredibly dynamic. It makes them pop, by the way. Sometimes I would wear a black tie and a white dress shirt and a black vest and a black jacket and black pants. You get the idea. It doesn't matter. But everybody else, we would look like a group. We would look like we were together. And as a church, you want to look somewhat and sound or come off or whatever like you flow together. It's like an album that one song is going to flow into the other song, and they don't sound like they belong to different worlds. So it flows. And we need to flow in the spirit, and we need to flow in those things. Okay, so anyway, but we're not all an eye, we're not all a nose, whatever, or an ear or a mouth. We are different. Do we all speak in tongues? No. Do we all prophesy? No. Do we all have this gift or this gift or this gift according to the New Testament? No. But the things that we do have, that they're complementary to each other. So if that's not uniformity, preacher man, what is that? That is called chemistry, my friend. That's called chemistry, where this person has this thing and this person has this thing, and they work so nice together. They're harmonious, for you music folks out there, one with the other. They blend together. So you absolutely, I don't feel like, and I know preachers who would wildly disagree because I'm smarter than them, but there's preachers that would wildly disagree, and they would want to say, yes, I completely want my know-it-all self to be surrounded by a bunch of yes men that have no real opinion or thought or the ability to get up and do it. Not me. I want people that we're on the same page with stuff, but that we could get together and we could talk in private, and it could make me better and it could make me stronger. You see, what makes you smarter, what makes you stronger, what makes you more capable is that iron does in fact sharpen iron. And when you get together with people that have it together, and when you can come together, and when you can talk, and when you can discuss, and when you can put it up there, and when you can weigh it out, and when you can think about it, it can cause you to improve. It can cause you to grow. It can cause you to flourish. I don't want to say, hey, what does anybody think about this? Does anybody have any ideas? So you can pet me like a dog. That's not what I want at all. What I want is to do better than I could otherwise do on my own, that we are stronger together. Sometimes when you ask the Lord for wisdom, he sends you people that have insights that you on your own do not have. So hear them and weigh it out. Hear them and weigh it out. Maybe they're right. Maybe they're wrong, but hear them and weigh it out. Style and flow is huge, and there's a lot of people that are caught up in style. I know preachers that go off preaching, and they'll sit around and they'll listen to TD Jakes, and the next time you hear them preaching, they'll sound just like TD Jakes. I know preachers that will hear such and such preacher, this one over here, that one over there, that speak really well in one capacity or another, in one style or another. Maybe one's a teacher preacher, maybe one's an expository preacher, maybe one of them is this fireball dynamic preacher, but they got their own thing going on, and you think, man, I like that. Because there are a lot of people that are incredibly dense, and they think that loud is anointed. So maybe if I just get up and scream, but I don't really say a whole lot of something, maybe my church will grow, because people say they're anointed because they can holler for 5 or 10 minutes and sit down. You're also not long-winded, so maybe that's a plus with that too. All kinds of stuff. Maybe if I could get up there and act all hyper intelligent, and I could just carry on with a bunch of stuff and talk about what this word means in the Greek and what that thing means. And if I could break that down, then I could pull in a crowd that really enjoys teaching. Because let me tell you that there's an audience for both of those things and a great many other things. There's an audience that likes different sorts of things. There are audiences and people that like preachers that'll call somebody out in every service. The Lord gave me a word for you, brother or sister. There's people that are down with that. There are people that are down with all the fiery prayer and altar call services, with all the faith healing stuff, with all the teaching stuff, with all this dynamic word. There are people like myself that truly care about music. And then I've met people that say that they don't care about music at all. Crazy. Right? There was this lady pastor that I knew, and I love lady pastors, though let's not relegate people, because all lady pastors, all men pastors are not created equal. And this person, who could get up and speak rather well, said the abominably stupid thing to another sister, I suppose you're one of those people that lacks four-part harmony. Are you mentally insane? Who doesn't like harmony? Ladies and gentlemen, in music, when you hear harmony, you hear money. Harmony sounds good. The Beatles sounded good because they had harmony. Quartets sound good. Gospel or secular, Boys to Men, in sync, whatever. The harmony is what makes their vocals sound good. They're not all singing the same thing. I don't mean the words. I mean, they're not all singing in C, but they're singing in other, chords and keys and what have you, that are harmonious to each other, that complement it. And when they mesh together, it sounds prettier. That's what ministry really is, and that's what we need to do in ministry. You may be a pastor, you may be an assistant pastor, you may be a worship pastor, worship. I know we just stick pastor on the front of everything. Man, that's a heavy crown to have on your head, isn't it? We may have all of those sort of things. Church services may go completely different. I had heard a pastor friend of mine that I think quite a lot of, and he told me, when I was pastoring at Benchmark Church, he said, you need to run your church while it's small the same way that you would when it's big. And it's probably true to a lot of degrees. I don't know, there could be some back and forth on that a little bit, but I get what he's saying in this, that if I said, we're going to let everybody get up and sing in the church that has a song. Do you have a song? 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 And I've been in services like that, and the Spirit can move and can flow in that. And just as somebody that's, me, I kind of feel like I would call on some people first and other people that flowed more with the anointing or the Spirit if I was going to do that towards the last, because I wouldn't want something to be happening and there be a certain rhythm to things, and then pull somebody in that would just murder what God was trying to do there in service. So you can have, and I've seen that. I've seen it work and I've seen it not, but it has to do with whether somebody's receptive of what the Lord wants to do, or whether they just got this wild hair that it doesn't matter how outlandish or how nonsensical it is for me to get up and do something crazy, that I'm going to go ahead and get up and do it. There's certain preachers that I know that, if they would ask me, if they would say, brother, they'd say, I got a word, I got to get up, I'd totally believe them, based on who they are. And there's others that, I'd be like, man, this isn't the time for that. There's certain preachers that I know that I think, man, if they got in and if they jumped it, they know what they're doing. They think this thing's going off the rails. I'm going to have to get a takeover spirit. They're messing the service up. I'm not going to allow somebody to mess God's service up. We're in a place in church, a lot of us are, unfortunately, where we have the mentality that we're going to have church whether God shows up or not. If you're talking about the different systematic structures of that too, there's a lot of churches that, they'll just have a praise team up. They might have somebody sing a special and all that. I've been in big churches, I've been in small churches that do that. Honestly, I can't think of big churches that I've been in that don't have some kind of structure and all and do that. And why is that? It's that they're being guarded with things. They want it to be in the flow. If you are the worship leader at the church, you're the one that picks out the songs and everything. And I'm not going to name any names because I know too many out anywhere and everywhere. but if it goes south, it's kind of on you, which is better and smoother and easier in very many ways than just, having a wild card thrown at you and anybody can do anything at any moment. Well, it's great. If somebody's not competent of being a worship pastor, they shouldn't be a worship pastor. As someone who has pastored, in many assessments a lot, and been in charge by many assessments a lot. My feeling is this: I do my job and I stay in my lane and I let other people do their job and stay in their lane. And if I don't feel like they're fit to do that job, then I won't let them do that job. But at the same time, as the person that is in charge, at the same time as the person that is overseen, and I don't care if it's my mother, I don't care if it's my wife, I don't care if it's my kid, if there was something that was just nuts and out of the way, I do realize that I'm going to stand accountable for before God, like Eli and his two sons, that I'm going to stand accountable before God if bad things are going on up in the pulpit. We certainly, as leadership, shouldn't allow for that to happen. A lot of problems that I've seen and that I've personally found in church, it's not come from the laity. It's not come from there's some sinner in the pews and they're doing that. It's not even come from the old time church gossip in the pews, that they're more on the churchy end of things, but they're backbiting and they're backstabbing and they're talking about everybody. And yeah, there's some of them, and they need to be in church because they're going straight to hell. They need to repent. It's not even about that, but it's when you have problems with the leadership and the way that things are being run overall. That's what it is when you're involved, especially, and you're seeing everything, like myself and presumably everybody watching this, since this is on discipleship. I'm guessing that you're actively involved, driven, or that you are involved. It really does matter. But I just wanted to say that we do need to have a mutual vision wherever we're at. We do need to have excellent communication one with another wherever we're at. I talked about that in my book about people that like to micromanage. And one of the reasons that people that do micromanage is because they are ineffective communicators. If you're going to ask someone to do something, let them do their job. But if you're one of these freaks that it matters to you, you're like, no, you can't paint the wall up and down. I wanted you to paint it side by side. Why didn't you say that? But if you're that way about, I just want the wall to get painted, is the way I want it done. And then if I say, hey man, can you go ahead and do this and make this look the way that I want? Can you go ahead and do this and make this sound the way that I want? Then I don't have to be your overlord over that. So long as you do your job, I don't need to lure over you or spy on you or whatever, because that's not a leader, that's a loser. I feel like at jobs, people get job assessments, and I think that we definitely should get that in ministries. I think that laity should assess themselves, how am I doing? But I think that it's something too that should be done with leadership. How am I? And it's hard, isn't it? Because ministries, they're not measured, they're weighed. The impact that I'm having from these videos, I want you just to look at this video and I want you to say, okay, what if just like some small number, like 10 people ever watch these videos, but one of them turned out to be the next Billy Graham? I'm just using him as an example. If you don't like Billy Graham, don't go hog wild on me. You get the idea. He did huge things. But one of those 10 people, even though it's 10 people, turn out to be the next Billy Sunday or whoever, and go on to do these monumental things for God. That, in essence, is kind of why numbers don't matter, because you are more than a number, because I am more than a number. I'm not some marginalized thing, and neither are you, right? Michael Jordan was just one guy. Wayne Gretzky was just one guy. Muhammad Ali was just one guy. But when you look at what they were in the sports that they particularly belong to, may God help you if you don't know who any of those people are. That is just so hard for me to believe right now. I'm giving you 3 different sports. If you know how I mean, wow, that those were the definitive figures in the sports that they were in. It doesn't matter that they were just one guy because they weren't like any of the other guys. You know, Larry Bird, I grew up and I liked Larry Bird. He was fantastic. I mean, he was astounding. He was going to break all records in basketball. He was destroying everybody. He was on his way to being the most legendary basketball player that there ever was. Why do I mention Larry Bird? Because the man was so good that it took this guy named Michael Jordan to beat him, right? Maybe you're not the Michael Jordan of whatever it is that you do, but if you're the Larry Bird, that ain't bad. I know people that have a issue, as somebody was bringing it up to me. There was a talk about somebody, that has a jealousy problem. I've never had that problem, like to the point that it's probably a psychological disorder. And it's not that I'm arrogant, it's just that I know that somebody will always be smarter than me in whatever way. There'll always be somebody that has a more lavish beard than me, or that has better hair than me. Maybe at this angle it doesn't look like it used to be glorious. I've got like a God-given yarmulke on top right now. That there'll always be somebody more whatever than me, but I'm not competing with you. I'm not trying to build my own kingdom, but I'm trying to work on the Lord's kingdom and call people to his kingdom. And that's where I'm at. And that's why I like to surround myself with competent people. I don't feel like I've got to be the best at anything that I'm doing or the best in any group that I run with. And I pray to God that I would get in the place where I'm not, and where I look and it's like definitely that I'm not, unquestionably. Wow. Where it's like, look at these people. I don't even deserve to be on stage with these people that I'm with. I see these churches and they'll put out these ministerial applications for pastor, assistant pastor positions and all that. You know that I've applied for some of those things. I mean, I'm talking about churches that are booming, that are rolling, that they've got it going on. And my dynamic self, I put in applications for that, and I think to myself, what is it that these people want to hear? Do I have to tell them that I went to school at Oxford or Cambridge? I didn't. Do I have to tell them what is it that they need to hear for them to even want to sit down and have a talk with me? Do I have to bring this celebrity that I just don't have? I don't know. I mean, I don't live in that world. I just want to reach people for the Lord Jesus Christ, and I'm passionate about that. And when I'm making this video that is not at all monetized and that you can share and plaster all over the internet because I'm doing it out of conviction, that's okay. The Bible teaches us about discipleship, that discipleship is fundamentally vital and important to Christianity, that it is part of the Great Commission, and that if you, friend, are not making disciples, that you are failing to do the Great Commission. Now, an easy way to do that, and this is by no means a mandate or just me trying to make some kind of grab, share the video. I mean, more bang, whatever. I'm not making a dime. I'm doing this trying to help people, what have you. I just hope that I inspire somebody out there. And that's why I'm doing these through video instead of just a little church group or whatever, because I'm going to reach somebody, maybe you that's watching, that I otherwise wouldn't reach. Down at church, they'll have you down as a minister that's not the pastor, wherever. They'll have you preach on a Sunday night or a Wednesday night, right? But you know that the bigger crowd tends to be there on Sunday morning. And you'll have people that'll just ignorantly be like, I didn't know he was a preacher. I didn't know he wrote over 100 songs. I didn't know that he put out all these books. I didn't know that he had did graphic art for the Olympics and for all these major I didn't know. You don't even know me. They don't even know you. Fellowship is important. Get to know people that you work in ministry with. Get to know people around you. Have a foundational basis. Know what drives people. Know who they are. There are people that talk to me all the time, and I think they don't even know me. Man, you did so good. I don't even want to hear it. I could care less. I care about results. I want to do big things for God. And that's where I'm at. I want to praise Him with all I got. Without a vision, the people are going to perish. If we can't be unified, if we can't be united in this thing, we blew it. We really are stronger together, but we're not stronger together if you're the coach of the basketball team and you've got a Michael Jordan and you've got a Larry Bird and you've got a Dr. J and you've got a whoever, LeBron, whoever else on the bench, because you want to be seen, right? Know who you got and use what you got if it's worth using at all. And if it's not, you need to do some internship. You need to do some talking and you need to do some explaining and saying, this is why this isn't going to jive. Quit wasting people's time. Get up and go for God, church.